his perseverance, his hard work, and stopping at every little city, town in Texas. Please see this. I served in the legislature for over a decade now. And last year we spent 11 months. We spent 31 days in Washington, D.C. I don't think we would have made those 31 days without the help of Beto For Texas. Beto has proven time and time again that he really cares for these citizens in Texas. And I dreamed, and I dreamt from the day that I got to the legislature, that one day we would have a Democratic speaker in the House. And when Beto wins, when he wins governor, we will have a Democratic speaker of the House. So you guys want to see what it feels like to fight every single day for no values that we share, that you and I share. But we can never give up that fight. We are outnumbered. This is why we went to Washington. We had no other choice. No other choice. So we left. And this is why I need your help. And I want everyone on that election day, you bring your mother, your grandmother, your sons, your daughters, your cousins, your neighbors, your friends.
Yeah.
And we're going to come out and vote. We're going to come out and vote. And I'm going to introduce him now, because I know everybody's dying to hear him speak. So we're going to vote in our next governor, Beto O'Rourke.
And our other hosts who invited us to this beautiful MultiCultural facility. It's fantastic, and we're grateful to all of you. Grateful to the community for hosting us. I'm grateful that you would want to spend some of your Friday evening with us. Some people go to the movies. Some people take their husband or wife out to dinner. You all get involved in a campaign for an election that's still 4.5 months away. But ladies and gentlemen, that's how we win this thing. It's by getting together right now. That's how we win. Something that's been on, I think, everybody's mind for more than 3 weeks is that awful shooting and massacre and the deaths and the lives taken from their families, from all of us in Uvalde, Texas. And I want to acknowledge what so many are going through across this state right now, especially in that community. And I don't want to do anything to minimize the suffering or the darkness that has descended on those who've experienced what no one, parent, should ever have to go through. But I think it's also important because you are going to talk to your family when you get home from this. You'll see your colleagues on Monday, your classmates when the next semester starts, your neighbors, the people that you talk to on social media, who are going to ask you about why this election is important to you and the choice that we have before us right now. You have a governor who makes light of that darkness that so many people are feeling. The day after that massacre in Uvalde, he was on a stage a little bit higher than this one. He told everyone who was there and everyone who was watching, not just in Texas, but around the world, almost the first words out of his mouth were, "It could have been worse."
Beto, you literally fantasized about killing 38 kids. You thought about killing 38 kids.
grateful there's just one of them in the entire city and county of Harris. He today was wearing a wig that he pulled on. The wig guys. Next time it's going to be a fake nose and glasses and mustache. We're going to get some facial recognition software working on these things. But hey, listen, even though he was disruptive, I'm glad that he's here. I'm glad that we have this democracy. I'm glad that we have the First Amendment. I'm glad that we can peacefully resolve our differences, even when we vigorously disagree. I'm glad that we have state representatives like Marianne Bettis, who had, to her conscience, was willing to stand up against this attack on democracy and voting rights. Literally walked out of the chamber to deny the Republican majority the forum they needed to roll back the rights that so many Texans have fought and in some cases died for, that we all too often take for granted. I'm grateful for great public servants like Lena Hidalgo, who does not put her finger to the wind and hold the wrong position, who does the right thing. Adrian Garcia, Commissioner on Activities Court, who also puts the community he serves before his own personal interests or his political prospects. We need more of that in America today. But to continue, and as I was saying, we don't want to make light of anybody's pain or suffering or the darkness, case of Valley, that they're going through. And when the most powerful man in the state of Texas shows up in your city, not even 24 hours after 19 children have been shot and killed by one of the most powerful weapons anyone can purchase in this country. A weapon originally designed for use in war, in combat, because that high-impact, high-velocity round is just so devastatingly effective at shredding to pieces everything inside of your body, your blood vessels, your arteries, your organs, the soft tissue. It is gone. You all saw, I hope, testifying before the United States Congress, one of the emergency physicians who responded to that massacre in Uvalde. And he said, we had to identify these kids by the shoes that they were wearing because their face was no longer recognizable. There was not much left of their little bodies. 10 and 11-year-old kids. And the governor of the state of Texas says it could have been worse. And what we found out after every single day as new information comes to light is that it was much worse. Were members of law enforcement in that hallway who for more than an hour waited to go in, including 13 DPS state troopers. I don't know all the facts, and I don't even begin to pretend to judge. But to not have that truth, transparency, to reach out to these families and say, ma'am, sir, is there anything at all I can do for you? Yes, I want some justice. I want to know the truth. I want to know the facts. I want to know what happened to my baby girl and my baby boy. I want to make sure that the world never forgets that they existed. I want you, Beto, to know their name and to repeat it to everyone you meet. Names like Olivia and Lexi, whose parents I have met. We want to make sure their memory lives on with us. And the other thing that they tell me is please do whatever we have to do. Do whatever we have to do to make sure that no parent ever suffers what I'm suffering right now, they have told me. As have other parents, some of whom are here right now in this room with us. One of those moms that I reached out to and I said, I don't think there's anything I can do for you, but no matter how small, how big, I am here for you. You just got to let me know. And she was so gracious and kind and generous. She took my call. She told me a little bit about her daughter and hung up. A couple of hours later, she texted me. She says, hey, Beto, there is nothing you can do for me right now. But I want to know what I can do, she said, who lost her daughter in this massacre, to make sure that no other mom feels the way that I do right now. And I know that there's someone here right now who probably does not want to be recognized, but she lost her daughter in the Santa Fe high school shooting in 2018, and she's exactly that kind of hero who has the courage to continue to go out there, knowing full well she'll never bring her baby back. But if she tries hard enough, she's courageous enough, if she's persistent enough, she may save some other mother from the pain that she's experienced every day since she has lost Kimberly. Ladies and gentlemen, Rhonda Hart is here with us right now. This is the profile of courage. This is who we need to know about. This is the community light into this darkness right now. You want to do it. Tell you what, you may wonder, you know, hey Beto, I think that's wonderful, but does it matter at the end of the day? There's so much intransigence, so many people bought and paid for by the gun lobby and the NRA, and they're more worried about their re-election and their prospects in the primary than they care about my kids in the classroom. So is anything going to change? I'll tell you what, when I first met Rhonda, and she told me the story of her child and that shooting, she also said, Beto, I'm a gun owner, I'm an Army veteran, I'm a school bus driver in the very same district where my daughter was taken from me, and I have an idea, and it's a common sense one. What if, for those of us who own firearms and have kids in the house, a 17-year-old, say, in our home, that we require that gun to be safely stored and locked up so that they can't get their hands on it, use it against themselves, use it against someone else. Not only talk to me about it, Republicans and Democrats, she tried to talk to our 2 U.S. senators. She did not care. She said, no me importa, I don't care what party they belong to, what party I have voted for in the past. They are sworn to serve me. And they hold a position of public trust that does not belong to them or to any one party. They've got to hear me. They've got to listen to this idea. Well, lo and behold, within the last week, the law that she has proposed was passed in the House of Representatives in the United States Congress. So, we honor those who bring light into our lives, people like Rhonda. And let's think about this, because apart from almost everyone else in the animal kingdom, we possess the capacity for empathy. We can think about what Rhonda has been through. We can imagine what that would be like for us. And that can compel us to act and to not accept things as they are, but as we know they should be. And not stop fighting or pushing or acting until we get there. And if anything, this moment calls for action. There's something that I'm going to say right now, and I'm going to come back to a few times, because I know you're not here primarily to listen to me. I know that you're here because you care about the future of this state. You want to make sure that we do everything within our power to secure a better future, not just for us, more importantly, for our kids and our grandkids. Now, check this out. In 2020, arguably the most important presidential election of our lifetimes, some would argue most important presidential election since 1864. In Harris County alone, there were more than 700,000 eligible voters who didn't cast a ballot. 700,000. Since that election in 2020, another 220,000 voters have entered the rolls. We're approaching 1 million people just in this county who are old enough, eligible enough, in many cases already registered to vote, from whom we have not heard. Their voices have not been part of the conversation. They've literally not had a seat at the table. Their votes have not been counted. Now imagine if every one of them, those million, and there are 7 million statewide in Texas, had shown up at the polls. Do you think that we would not only not have made progress on sensible gun safety measures like safe storage or red flag laws or universal background checks? Do you think that we would have a total ban on abortion beginning at conception with no exception for rape or incest? Do you think that our government would be pursuing the parents of transgender kids, promising to arrest them and take their children from them and put them into CPS. And oh, by the way, do you think we would have Child Protective Services, the worst run foster care program in the United States of America, bar none, where 100 children lost their lives in the custody and care of the state of Texas just since 2020? No, that's not us. And I don't care if you're a Republican, independent, or a Democrat. I don't care if you're fourth generation or if you got here 4 days ago. You are a human being. You have common sense. You want to make sure that you do right by the Lord? So, nearly 1 million voters in Harris County, and to put this into context, when we together ran against Ted Cruz in 2018, we only lost by 216,000 votes. There are more than 900,000 uncounted votes in this county right now, but I can't reach them alone. I can run the most amazing television ad in the world. Maybe they don't watch TV. Maybe it's not compelling enough for them. We can come up with the smartest tweet on Twitter, the best dance you've ever seen on TikTok. We can do all the things that politicians do, but it might not break through. In fact, we're going to be honest with each other, and if anything, we owe one another our candor at this moment. It's not going to break through. Because if it were to break through, it would have broken through already. They would have voted in the most consequential election of our lives 2 years ago. What will break through is you. If another human being shows up at their door and says, Ms. Gonzalez, I'm here to tell you why I'm voting in this election. I really, really care about my right to make my own decisions about my own body. Or I'm a school teacher and I'm underpaid by $7,500 against the national average, and I gotta fight my way through this STAR test that in no way is my classroom or the potential. You may show up and say, I was so moved by what happened in Uvalde. I knew I just couldn't sit on the sidelines and hope that somehow it was going to get better of its own accord. You show up and you say that, and that person who's missed every election for which they were eligible over the course of their adult life is listening to you. Eyeball to eyeball, face to face, human being meets human being. In this digital age, after 2 years of being isolated and separated from one another, there's nothing more powerful or profound that we can do if we are interested in making the changes that we're talking about tonight, including winning political power. Because at the end of the day, we can hope and pray that the Department of Justice is going to intervene to make sure that we enforce the Voting Rights Act, but if you hold your breath, you're never going to make it. You can hope and pray that somehow the Supreme Court's not going to follow through on that draft decision, overturning 49 years of a constitutional right for a woman to choose her own future, her own destiny, make her own decisions about her own body. But I don't think that's going to happen either. There is no cavalry coming to our rescue. No powerful person is going to intervene at the end of the day. It is you. And that has to sink in for every single one of us. What are you willing to do to make sure that we win? Now, there are a number of people in yellow construction vests. And what they're building right now is a victory for Texas. They are interested in knowing whether you want to sign up to host a block walking canvas. This is where people come to your house, the cafe down the street from you, the bar where you like to have a mid-afternoon ice-cold beer on a Saturday, and gather together and then go out and knock on the doors of those people who've been unrepresented and unreflected in our past elections. And ladies and gentlemen, these are the very people targeted by Greg Abbott for voter suppression and voter intimidation. We're not 46th in the nation in voter turnout because we're lazy or we lack any love for this great democracy. We've literally been drawn that way. People in positions of power choosing their voters instead of the other way around. One ballot drop-off box in all of Harris County in the deadliest pandemic of the last 102 years. Voter ID that says, listen, You have a gun license? That's cool. You have a student ID from the University of Houston? No dice. They are deciding who should and who should not be represented in this democracy that men and women have put their lives on the line and lost them for time and again. If you will knock on those doors, check this out. The very people targeted for suppression, the very people targeted to be excluded from this next election are going to prove to be the margin of victory when we win on November 8th. You are going to win this. So this is going to take all of us. We're going to kind of work our way through this, but if you are so compelled to host one of these block walks, we'll hold your hand through it, we'll give you instructions. It's really as simple as just being the hub around which other people gather, and then you go on, knock on the doors, we'll give you the addresses, we'll give you the names, we'll suggest some things that you want to say, but I want you to speak from your own heart in your own words. Over the course of the conversation today, and there will be a conversation, I'm going to turn this microphone over to you and listen to what you have to say. Just hold 2 fingers up, and one of these folks in a yellow vest will come to you and sign you up. I mean, this is premium concierge service. We come to you. You don't have to stand alone. I've got 2 people up here for folks in the yellow vest. I've got more people back here. I've got more in the back of the room. I've got someone up here in the front. This is a great start. There may be different points over the course of this conversation where you're moved to say, you know what? That's right. I want to do everything that I can. You put those 2 fingers up. One of our volunteers will come to you. Okay, I'm gonna try to bring this to a close so that we can listen to you and bring more voices into the conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing you and responding to you. But on this issue of darkness, when you're talking to your friends and that person who's never voted for a Democrat before, who's maybe never voted in their lives before, just think about this idea of darkness. The darkness that befell Uvalde, the darkness under which these great public school teachers are working right now. They're leaving by the thousands, ladies and gentlemen. You know that? My 5th grader had 5 substitute teachers this year, not a single permanent classroom teacher for his entire academic year. At his completion ceremony, I nudged the person next to me. I share this anecdote. She says the same for my kid in his class. I was telling this story 2 nights ago in Austin. Guy raised his hand and said, that's my class as well. These teachers who've been told which version of history they can or cannot teach, who've been told they have to turn in parents for child abuse and they're trying to help their kids navigate a decision about their future and their identity. A Don't Say Gay bill is coming down the pipe in this next legislative session. These educators, very often working a 2nd or 3rd job right now to make ends meet, are literally keeping kids alive today. And listen, if we win this, and we're talking about not making light of people's darkness, but bringing light to remove it, then this is what we can do. What if we raised all teacher pay in this state by at least $7,500 retired teachers who've given the best year of their lives to our kids, who have not seen the cost of living adjustments since 2004, get one every single year from the ability to afford to be a retired teacher in the state of Webster. What if we cancel the STAR test and replace it with what if we treated educators, classroom teachers, counselors, librarians, school bus drivers, the people who connect with our kids and keep them going and very often keep them alive day in and day out? What if we treated them with the respect that they've earned, that they are owed, that they deserve, that we all want to give them? I say every night to the state of Texas, and we can do it. Speaking of darkness, I'm going to try one on you. You may or may not remember, but last February, in the energy capital of the world, the sitting governor could not keep the lights on in the state of Texas. Could not keep the heat going. The pipes froze. Could not keep the water flowing. More than 700 people died, lost their lives. They were taken from us in the state of Texas. Conroe, Texas, an 11-year-old boy. Imagine how his mother felt trying to keep him warm and alive over the course of that night, only to lose him by the morning. A 75-year-old Vietnam-era veteran whose oxygen tank could not be recharged in his house because he didn't have any damn electricity, goes out to his truck to charge it there, and they find him dead of hypothermia in this state. The ninth largest economy on the planet, $2 trillion GDP, and we can't keep this guy who was willing to give his life for us 50 years ago breathing. Well, listen, the solution is not rocket science. If we weatherize the grid, if we make sure that we winterize the gas supply, if we refuse to allow people like Energy Transfer Partners to make $2.4 billion in 5 days over the suffering of the people of this state, there was more than $11 billion that changed hands and enriched corporations that were already among the most profitable in the state of Texas. And to add insult to injury, to pay this all back, you are being charged higher rates on every single monthly utility bill. The average across the state of Texas is $50 more per month. And get ready for this. The projection is you'll be paying that higher rate for the next 20 years to pay back everything that was stolen from us. Here are some ideas that I gained from you when I listened. 1, let's winterize and weatherize the grid. 2, let's connect ERCOT to the national grid so that we need $11 billion back and return it to the ratepayers of Texas to reduce the bills to a and then let's make sure this never happens again. Independent market monitor for the trading of gas in this state will no longer allow people to hold our utilities and their customers hostage and to result in bankruptcies that we've seen across the state and homes that have been damaged to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. This is common sense. This is not a Democratic Party or Republican Party idea. This is a Texas solution to a problem that we are currently enduring because we have a governor who's more interested in his campaign donors and how he fares in the Republican primary for president in 2024 than he is in the lives of the people that he was sworn to serve. This is what's on the line for all of us today and for all of us on the night of November 8th. So over the course of this conversation, as I turn the microphone back over to you, please put 2 fingers up. Somebody in the yellow vest will be looking for you. Cynthia, eagle-eyed Cynthia Como, will be helping them spot and bring them to you. But this is what I'm going to land on. You know, we asked the question earlier, you know, is Rhonda's persistence and leadership on reducing gun violence while protecting the Second Amendment, is it worthwhile? Is she ever going to get anywhere? And was able to demonstrate that she, an everyday citizen, was able to get legislation that she wrote passed in the House of Representatives. Well, the same question could be asked for all of us who are part of this campaign. In December, not even a month after we launched, Quinnipiac, and I just learned how to pronounce that. They are the gold standard when it comes to political polling in this country. Quinnipiac took a look at this race. They asked you and your fellow Texans who comprise the electorate in this state, if Abbott and Rourke were on the ballot today, who would you vote for? And in December of 2021, it was Abbott up by 15 points. Now, since then, he has tried to bury us with millions of dollars of paid TV ads, burnishing his credentials, and trying to make you afraid of me, make you afraid that I'm a socialist, which I'm not. Make you afraid that we want to destroy the jobs in the state of Texas. Hell, I'm the only one in this race who's a small business owner and created jobs and did a payroll every single week. I know how to do that, and I want to see more of them and better ones going forward. Well, after all that money spent, and after the last 6 months when you have had a chance to hear me in person, because we've spent $0 on TV, we just show up to your community and listen to you face to face, just like we're doing right now. You know, how the hell is that going to work, right? This is a governor who literally took $1 million from Kelsey Warren, whose company was Energy Transfer Partners that made the $2.4 billion. How are we going to succeed against that kind of challenge in a state that last elected a Democrat 32 years ago to this office? Happens to be the best governor we ever had, and Richard Quinnipiac said we're 15 points down. Well, 2 days ago, Quinnipiac took a second look at the state of Texas. They asked the same Texas electorate, elections today, who do you vote for? We cut Abbott's lead by 10 points. With a margin of error of over 2 points, ladies and gentlemen, we are absolutely in this race. And it's not because of the candidate, it's not because of its party, it is because of you. If you will help me to continue to have these conversations with these voters. We are now 76,000 volunteers strong, including those who are wearing the yellow vests tonight. If you will help me get on those doors and have those conversations, and listen, I'm from the desert, it gets hot, but it's a dry heat. Knocking on doors in Harris County is dangerous, right? But if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to go through that trial so that others don't have to suffer a worse trial in their lives, so we can change what continues to happen over and over again in the state, or maybe even get worse, then I need you right now. So just remember, at any point, you can hold those two fingers up. We'll get a volunteer over to you to sign you up. Cynthia Cano, who's about to stand up, she's got the other microphone, and she's going to take it to you if you raise your hand with all 5 fingers. And if you have a question, 2 fingers, you want to sign up, 5, if you've got a question or a comment or a suggestion or an idea or even a criticism. And I mean that. I don't care if you're wearing a wig like that guy was, or you're tearing the poster up, but if you just say it civilly, I'll listen to you, and it'll make me a better candidate in this, a better campaign. Cynthia also has a Clorox wipe, and she's going to wipe that microphone down after every use, because we still have a pandemic going on in this state. We want to be safe. We're going to make sure that we clean and sanitize this mic. We want everyone to feel comfortable doing that. Ms. Cano, we're going to turn it over to you. You're first, no pressure.
So,
You're good. Take your time. Take your time.
so my question is actually, I'm an educator. I've been an educator for 2 years now. I actually started 1 month after the San Diego shooting, so I've been in, just want to let you know, for me anyway, teachers have become kind of, it's just kind of part of our routine now. And that's how I'm an elementary school teacher, so it's some of our routine at the beginning of the school year. I, law course, science class, like law, and having to explain to my 10-year-olds why we have to do this. And it's because there are some bad people out there who do bad things. And that's just kind of, because people don't ask us. Politicians don't ask teachers. They don't. There's always an expert, there's always a politician has their opinion. But teachers, we are there every single day. And there's the new committee that Abbott has. It's administrators who have been out of the classroom 10, 15, 20 years. Teachers, we taught during the pandemic, online, hybrid, with the masks, with the shields. They don't know. Ask us. Sorry, that's what he's there. Now on to my question, sorry. So, as we now know, politicians are getting into the classroom a lot more, as you did say, with the critical race theory, going into new modern book burnings. And what can you do, and keep the politician down? Let us do our job. How can you do that? What are you going to do to keep you back out? No,
Thank you for being here. It's public service. And I just first want to acknowledge the opening comments you made. I've met so many educators like you who, especially at Community Valley, have come up and said, you know, I feel lucky because this one woman said, because I'm a chemistry teacher and I've got these big lab tables in my classroom. And I kind of figure that if we close the blinds, lock the door, and hide behind the lab tables, we have a little bit more protection from whatever firepower that is coming in. Another teacher said this to me in San Antonio the week after Uvalde. She said, I've got a 15-year-old girl at home. And she just asked me recently, when the shooter comes into your classroom, are you going to die for those kids? Or are you going to try to stay alive for us? And she's telling me as she's crying, I remember her name was Bonnie. She's telling me as she's crying, she said, I don't know that I can stay in this job anymore. You're already asking so much of me, and to your point, you're not listening to me. So you're asking, how do we make these changes so that you stop having politicians, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, say, you will teach this version of history. You will treat your children the following way. You're going to have a standardized test that you're going to spend months preparing the kids for, taking you away from why you got into the profession in the first place, to connect with them and unlock a lifelong love of learning. Well, here's where I'm going to start as your governor. We are going to appoint, as the next TEA commissioner, a classroom teacher. And listen, if our current governor, after Uvalde, says, you know what I'll do? I'll call a committee. And I can call a committee. You can call a committee. We can all call a committee. We can call this a committee, and it is because we said so. Only the governor of the state of Texas can call a special session. As you all know, our legislature only convenes once every 2 years. If you want to bring them into town to do business, for example, to save lives, you've got to call a special session, which the governor refuses to do. He was happy to do it to try to scare you about CRT. He was happy to do it to try to tell kids which bathroom they were allowed to use. He was happy to do it to try to deny you the right to vote. But when we can actually save someone's life and prevent the next school shooting, my kids go back to school in El Paso August 1. I'm desperate for a special session to put their minds at ease, and especially the minds of their teachers who are there to protect their lives. I will call that special session. And I'm telling you this, listen, we will not all agree on every issue related to this, but maybe we can agree on this much. Universal background checks, a red flag law, a safe storage law, and I may be alone on this, but I think we should stop selling AR-15s and AK-47s. Empower teachers and educators as the witness. Allow them to inform the people of the state. You know, one of the things the governor said on that stage was, you know, maybe this is a mental health care issue. You know? So, you know, if you have a mental health care problem, you're more likely to do this to somebody. You know, talk about anything but the fact that an 18-year-old could legally go in to a store. 18 years old. Your prefrontal cortex has not fully formed. Your impulse control is not there. Your long-term planning. All the things that maybe I take for granted as a 49-year-old. At 18 years old, you can go in and buy not one, but 2 AR-15s and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. No questions asked. Good luck. Have fun. You know, don't put that on the agenda. But if you really do care about mental health care, we're 50th in the nation in access to a mental health care provider. The largest, I know the commissioner and the judge know this, the largest inpatient mental health care facility in the great state of Texas, 30 million people, is the Harris County Jail in downtown Houston, Texas. So here, if you care about mental health care, and I do too, let's put Medicaid expansion on that special section. $10 billion a year that comes into the state. And then, in IMOS, we've got to fully fund it. So the $10 billion coming in from the federal government is great, but we are going to need to fund more. We're going to go from 50th to 1st, and then also make sure that on that special session agenda, we're looking at how to keep you in the classroom, because you're literally keeping our kids alive. And you just asked all of us today, you want people in power to listen to you. I tell you, I call you as our first witness. so that you can tell us what you need in that classroom, so that you'll stay in that classroom, and that we don't lose you as we've lost so many other teachers. So thank you for being here. Thank you for standing up and asking the question. Appreciate it.
To your right, Webster, and to your right. And this young man right over here had his hand up first for hosting the Canvas sign-ups. He was right there.
All right. Thank you for hosting. Appreciate it.
Of course. What's going on, Beto? My name is Josh Martin. I'm the student body president at the University of Houston. I've met you a few times. I want to tell you how much it truly means to me that you are here today. I mean, I'm a graduate of Clearbrook High School, which is just about 8 minutes from here. So it's my home. And I mean, as far as this is kind of just a comment I had, as far as addressing mass shootings in America, I mean, they've had enough time to address mass shootings. I mean, they should have addressed it after Columbine. They should have addressed it after Parkland. They should have addressed it after Santa Fe. And time after time, nothing's been done about it. And I mean, overall, I mean, it's great that all these people are here today. But I mean, I guess the question I have to the crowd first before I have the question for you, will this crowd be here in September? Will this crowd be here in October? Whenever we need to go canvas, whenever we need to go block, whenever we need to make phone calls, whenever we need to knock on doors. So I know one thing that we're doing at the University of Houston and around the surrounding colleges, we've actually formed a partnership with 7 Houston area universities in order to register people to vote. So the question I have for you today is, how will you help student leaders like me and my colleagues from around the city register students to vote and get them to the polls in November?
Josh, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure. We talk about all those voters who are targeted for suppression and intimidation. And part of that that's so pernicious in the state of Texas is you can do anything you want online except register to vote in this state. We're one of the last states that prevents you from doing that. And should you be a great citizen, you want to help somebody register to vote, you have to go get sworn in as a volunteer deputy registrar. And if you get that registration and you hold it for more than 4 days, they can come arrest you for not processing the paperwork right. Now, it is not about making that bureaucracy hum. It's about scaring you from ever entering that line of work in the first place. And to make it less likely that someone's going to register to vote, especially if they are young, especially if they don't have an automobile. It's harder to get down to the county courthouse and to register, or if they don't have a printer. I mean, what person under the age of 25 knows what a printer is in America today? And what a stamp is to put on an envelope to send that completed form in. So here's what we're doing, and this is not without controversy. Most campaigns say, you know what, that really sucks, but I'm in the business of getting elected, winning this race, limited time and resources. I can only focus on likely voters who are the voters who typically vote in elections. And those are the same people that we talk to time and time again, and I don't need to tell you we end up with the same result time and time again. And the other people who are too expensive or inconvenient or unknown because no one's ever talked to them, the problem compounds over time. No one talks on one election cycle after another. So what we're doing, because we have so many volunteers, I mentioned 76,000 people have joined those of you who raised your hands today to go knock on those doors and to go meet those voters. We are going out and we're knocking on doors, not just of registered voters, but unregistered households. And having that conversation and saying, listen, I know you've never voted before, I know you're not registered, and listening about where people are intimidated. They knew a new law was passed. They hear that people wait 6 hours in line outside of TSU to be able to cast their ballot. Maybe they don't want any of that. Maybe they've had a brush with the law. They've been incarcerated. They have a conviction on their record. They don't realize that once they are off paper, their rights are restored and they can vote again. No one's ever told them that because the state of Texas doesn't tell you that. We'd rather you just not vote and we'll forget about you. Well, those are the doors we're showing up on right now. And listen, it's not easy. All right? It involves a little bit extra work. Most campaigns do not do this. But imagine the hundreds of thousands. If we do this statewide, the millions of people that we can reach and bring on to the rolls. And when I mentioned that there's no cavalry coming to our rescue, that it's us, it's you, it's me, we are the ones that have got to do that work. That's the work that I'm talking about. And so this young man was the first one with his hand up. No question why you were elected president of the student body at the University of Houston. We need a lot of years in. We will be here in September, in October, in November, Thank you.
There's so many people right now in my situation. People who are proud Texans, but we can't keep doing this. And I know so many people that aren't extremists, that have questions. The people that are going to vote for you, most of us here, we already knew that. The people like some of my family who think that somebody else is God's gift, they're going to do what they're going to do. It's my neighbors. It's the checkout lady at my grocery store. It's the secretary at my church. They're middle of the road, everyday Texas citizens that are hearing all of these vile, scary things about you. What do you say to them? How are you going to convince them to come out and vote for you? Because we need it.
I'm so glad that you're here. I'm glad you're here for what you do in the church. There's a gentleman who approached me, I don't know if he's still here, as I was coming in, he said, I'm a very conservative voter, and I haven't made up my mind. I came here today to listen to you. And all of you who are not for me, maybe not for me yet, may even choose to be against me, I love that you're here. And we need more of that, as you said. We too often are too good at talking to the choir. And partly I did want to do that today, because I knew a lot of people came who support us, who I want to make sure also out there knocking on doors, as we've been talking about. But we got to talk to the people who aren't there yet, or may have heard the worst, wildest thing about me, and need to make sure that I don't want to turn Texas into Venezuela, or whatever Adam is going to say next about us. And so this guy who approached me, I said, well, tell me something. And I was walking in, and Cynthia's like, you don't have time to talk to her, we're about to introduce you. And I said, listen, I'm not going to try to argue policy with you right now. I'll just tell you I'm here because I want to meet you, because I want to listen to you. I always will. We might not always agree, but I'm always going to try to find the common ground. I'm going to get something done. And now listen, on any given issue, we were talking about guns earlier, we may not be able to get an assault weapon. And I think we should try. And I bet you there's actually the support out there in the wider public to get this done. Push on those Republican lawmakers. Maybe they'll see the light and get religion and do the right thing at the end of the day. But maybe they won't. But we don't give up then and go home and say, you know what, those damn Republicans don't want to do any work. We say, you know what, they're our fellow Texans. And I bet you they care about their kids just as much as I care about my kids. I bet you their hearts were broken just as my hearts were broken after you got it. I bet you they want to do something. And maybe that's background checks. Maybe that's safe storage. Maybe that's a red flag law. And so that's what I told this guy. I'm going to find out how we make progress and get something done. And one of the things I want you to share with the secretary of your church is that you came out and you heard me today. And that I acknowledge the difficulty and the darkness under which many Texans are living and laboring right now. And together, I want us to lift that. I want us to do it not by vilifying or demonizing or judging the other side or even the other guy, but by talking about what we are going to do instead. We're going to focus on world-class public schools by having the backs of our world-class public school educators. We're going to expand Medicaid so more people can see a provider in the least insured state in the country. We're going to focus on the kinds of jobs that we want to create that not only pay a living wage in a state where more people work underneath a living wage than any other in the union, but jobs that provide purpose and function and meaning in people's lives. That's what I want for my 3 kiddos as soon as they are old enough to work. So those 3 things, world-class schools, great jobs, the ability to see a doctor. Who among us can be against that? That is something that at least brings all of us together. And last thing that I want to say, for anyone who voted for Greg Abbott in 2018, and hear me out, in that year there were 8 million ballots cast. I happened to be running for senator at the time. 500,000 of our neighbors voted for Greg Abbott for governor, and those same 500,000 voted for Beto O'Rourke for senator. The last time the 2 of us appeared on the ballot, 500,000 Texans voted for each of us. Those same 500,000. Again, we lost by 216,000 votes. If we demonize those who voted differently than we have in the past, we might as well say goodbye to them. And we shouldn't even do that, I don't think, to Greg Abbott. Does he want to see kids shot and killed in Uvalde? He does not. Does he want the lights to go out and people to die because they froze to death in the state? No, he probably does not. But for whatever reason, he's unwilling or incapable of making the changes necessary to prevent that from happening again. We just need to turn the page and bring everyone together in this campaign. You help me go reach out to those people, okay?
First, I want to say I did vote for you, Ms. Ted Cruz. My whole family did. In November. But I'm in education. I've been doing it for 19 years, but I'm a teacher assistant. I'm finishing up school to be a teacher. My question was just in general, and you kind of touched on it though, the gun laws that haven't made it easy for you to carry guns, and are you going to overturn it, or what are you going to do about this gun law where you can carry guns? So what are you going to do about that? That's pretty much my question.
I made a comment about AR-15s and AK-47s in Houston a couple of years back. And there's a Vietnam-era veteran that I've gotten to know in El Paso. I served on the House Veterans Affairs Committee. I busted my ass for this guy and everybody who served, and especially that generation, because after putting their lives on the line for this country, they came back not to ticker tape parades, not to pats on the back, not to thank you for your service. At best, indifference, at worst, scorn. And nonetheless, put their heads down, raised their families, built up our communities, and are still serving other veterans of newer generations. These guys and gals are all-time heroes, but this guy was pissed off at me. He said, Beto, I've got 6 AR-15s in my house. I carried something like that in the jungles of Vietnam. I know how to use it. I'm responsible. I keep it locked up. And I'm really disappointed with what you had to say. And I wanted to give you a piece of my mind. I said, I appreciate you inviting me over for coffee, for being so candid with me. And it's tough to hear, and I know we disagree on this, but I hear you loud and clear. And he said, but the thing that concerns me more than that, Beto, is this bill that Greg Abbott is about to sign into law. It's called permitless carry. He says, I'll tell you why I'm so disturbed. Right now, this is no longer exists, but at the time, we had a license to carry program. You want to carry a gun in public? Okay, that's fine. But you're going to go through a background check. You're going to perform some vetting to make sure you're not going to use it against yourself or the kids in your school or the people with whom you work, or walk into a Walmart like that guy did in El Paso and killed 23 people who were minding their business on that day because they had brown skin in my hometown. We're just going to make sure that we keep everybody safe. And, y además, we're going to also make sure you know how to use that firearm. And so this guy, this Vietnam vet, he was a licensed firearm trainer. When you were getting your license to carry, you had to go to see him in El Paso. He would train. He said, that the folks come in, they don't know which end of the gun the bullet comes out of. And I'm worried about that. And so I sure hope that Abbott doesn't sign this. Even more important, perhaps, police officers, sheriff's deputies, chiefs, and sheriffs across the state of Texas begged Greg Abbott not to sign permitless carry into law. More cops have been gunned down in this state than any other in the union. They told him it's going to make our jobs even more dangerous and more difficult to protect and serve the lives of those who live in our community. Mr. Abbott, Governor, please don't sign this. Turned his back on that and opened his hand to the NRA and signed that bill into law. Predictably, gun violence has spiked in the state of Texas. It has not made us more, it's made us less safe. And gun owners, Republicans, non-gun owners, independents, Democrats, everyone in this state, by and large, thinks that that is a bad idea. Maybe not every single last person, but most Texans, importantly gun owners, who remind us that we have a long tradition of responsible gun ownership in this state, and what Abbott is doing is not part of that. So, long way to get to the answer to your question. Yes, we need to overturn this, get this off the books, return back to something far more responsible, far more technically alive, while protecting the Second Amendment in the state. Thank you for asking. Thank you for voting for it.
First, thank you. And second, I think the one issue for many Republicans is the border. And what is your border policy short version?
Got it. Cynthia, that was a very polite way of telling me that I talk too much. I love that you're asking this question in the most diverse city in the United States of America, right? You think about folks, the people who call Houston home, the people who call my hometown of El Paso home, 24% of them were born in another country. And they chose us. And by their very presence, they made us more successful, stronger, and this is the kicker that is counterintuitive to every person who believes the lies that Trump and Abbott have told. They make us safer as a result. El Paso, Texas, one of, if not the safest cities in the United States of America. Not in spite of, but because we are a city that welcomes and has become successful because of those immigrants who have chosen us. Man, if immigration is a problem, it's the best problem we could have. Do we have real challenges at the border? I'm already screwing up the short answer, so I'm sorry. Do we have real challenges at the border? Absolutely. Let's be clear-eyed about that. People who want to traffic fentanyl and illegal drugs from which people die after they become addicted to them, or they try unwittingly and overdose. Yeah, that's a real threat. I want to keep my eye focused on that. Do we have those who would traffic in human beings? Modern-day slavery in the year of our Lord 2022. Yes, that is happening too, and very often that occurs at the border. And let us please be focused on that and eradicate that from this country. But when you have a governor who says that we are being invaded by people who very often are fleeing the most brutal, violent places on the planet, who walk sometimes on foot 2,000 miles, 12 years old, strangers in a strange land, showing up as refugees and asylum seekers in a country that is by and large comprised of asylum seekers and refugees, and we somehow make them the enemy. Well, then you turn on somebody in Allen, Texas, who buys that AK-47, drives it 600 miles to El Paso, shoots and kills 23 people, promising that he's repelling that invasion that he has been warned about. We don't need that kind of rhetoric. We don't need stunts like busing people to Washington, D.C., or shutting down all U.S.-Mexico trade, or involuntarily activating 10,000 members of the National Guard, or building a public art project, also known as a border wall, where people go around this side or that side. We don't need to spend $5 billion of your money every year to do this, to end up with nothing better than what we started with, I would argue, with more chaos than which we began with. What we need are solutions. So here's my solution. I met a DACA recipient on my way in here. Every dreamer in this state has already had a background check. We know their identity. We know where they live. They've proven themselves. They're contributing far more to this state and our country than they could ever hope to take. Legalize every single one of them permanently. Get them on track to citizenship. Allow them to continue even though in the Texas for those who, for the privilege of picking onions or working in a slaughterhouse, or fixing fence on a farm or a ranch want to come to this country to earn something to take back to their family wherever they are from, let's have a real guest worker program that honors their work, allows them to follow the law, and creates order where there is chaos right now today. And then last idea, let us bring Republicans, Independents, Democrats, people in this room, across the state together. And let us devise a Texas plan for rewriting this country's immigration laws. The last time we did this was when Ronald Reagan was president of the United States of America. It's been that long, and every year that we delay action, I'll tell you what, those in power are more able to scapegoat immigrants coming to this country. We have Ted Cruz saying, if you want to improve safety in our communities, let's patrol Muslim neighborhoods for the people who are coming in from other countries. They somehow pose a threat to us as immigrants or those of another faith than our own. They become demonized, and they become the excuse, and they become the enemy, and as we saw in El Paso, they become the target. We also lose out on all of the positive economic benefits, cultural, early fashion, if we will only lead on. Gracias.
If y'all would like to take a quick picture, I'm so sorry we cannot more questions, but if you want to take a quick picture, you can line up on this.